The testimonies featured on this channel are presented as received, reflecting the personal experience and perspectives of the individuals who have generously shared them with us. We do not verify or authenticate the events described. We encourage our viewers to approach these testimonies with compassion and understanding, as these are personal testimonies of people involved. We also encourage you to always refer to the Holy Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ and his apostles for guidance. Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring you an extraordinary testimony, one that shakes the very foundations of faith and belief. It is a story of light emerging from the depths of darkness, of a man who lived his life devoted to Islam, only to have his soul shattered by the very truth he once denied. Sheikh Mubarak was a respected imam in France, a scholar of Quran, a man deeply committed to his faith, guiding hundreds in their prayers and leading them in devotion to Allah. He had spent his life preaching the words of Islam, believing with every fiber of his being that he was walking the straight path. But one fateful day, everything changed. It started with a sudden illness, one that brought him to the brink of death. His heart stopped, his breath ceased, and the world around him faded into blackness. And then he saw what no living man should see. What he witnessed on the other side would leave him trembling in terror. He stood at the gates of eternal torment. He saw the fate that awaited the souls of the lost. He heard the screams of those who had perished in their sins. And just when he thought all was lost, a voice called him, a voice unlike any he had ever known. When Sheikh Mubarak awoke, he was no longer the man he used to be. His world had changed forever. And now, he stands before us with a testimony that will shake you to your core. Let's hear from Sheikh Mubarak.
My dear brothers and sisters, I stand before you today not as the man I once was. My name is Mubarak. I was a devout Muslim, an imam in France, teaching and preaching Islam to all who would listen. I never doubted my faith until the day I died. It began like any other day. I had just finished leading the Maghrib prayer in the mosque. I greeted the worshippers, exchanged words of encouragement, and then returned home. But as I stepped inside my house, a sudden pain gripped my chest. It was sharp, unbearable, like fire spreading through my veins. My legs gave out beneath me, my vision blurred. I heard the distant cries of my family, and then silence. The moment my heart stopped, I felt myself being pulled away from my body. At first, there was darkness, deep, endless darkness. I thought I was dreaming, but then a force greater than anything I had ever known took hold of me, and I was hurled into a place I cannot fully describe. I found myself standing in a land of utter desolation. The air was thick with smoke, the sky burned with an unholy fire, and the ground beneath me was like molten lava, cracking and shifting as if it were alive. And then, the screams began. At first, they were distant, like the wind howling through a valley. But then they grew louder, closer. I turned, and what I saw made my soul tremble. There were people, thousands, millions, burning. Some were buried up to their waists in fire, their hands raised in desperate pleas for mercy. Others had their flesh torn from their bones, yet they did not die. They just kept screaming, writhing in agony. And among them, I recognized faces, scholars I had once studied with, men who had taught me the Quran, even an old friend, a man I had prayed beside for years. His eyes met mine, filled with terror, and he shouted, "Mubarak, do not come here. Do not follow the path we followed." I was frozen, unable to move. Then I heard a voice behind me, deep, powerful, filled with unspeakable wrath. "This is the place of judgment," the voice said. I turned and saw a figure unlike anything I had ever imagined. It was enormous, clothed in darkness, its eyes like burning coals. It reached out a hand, and suddenly I was falling into the pit below. The heat was unbearable. The pain was beyond anything I had ever felt. I screamed, but my voice was lost among the millions of other voices crying out in torment. And then a light, a brilliant, blinding light pierced through the darkness. It was so pure, so powerful, that everything around me trembled. The screams softened, the fire receded, and the monstrous figure shrank back as if in fear. And then I heard the voice, a voice unlike any other, a voice that filled me with peace, even in that place of horror. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The moment those words were spoken, I was pulled out of the pit. The darkness faded, the fire disappeared, and I found myself in a place of peace. I saw a man standing before me, his face shining like the sun, his eyes filled with love and sorrow. He reached out his hand, and I fell to my knees weeping. "Sheikh Mubarak," he said, "I have called you for a purpose. Go and tell them what you have seen." And then suddenly I was back. I gasped for air, my chest heaving as my heart started beating again. The doctors were shouting, my family was crying. I was alive, but I was no longer the same. For days I could not speak. I could not eat. I could not sleep. The images haunted me. The screams, the fire, the faces of those who had perished. But what haunted me most was the voice that had saved me. I had spent my life believing I was on the right path. But in that moment, I knew the truth. I had been wrong. Jesus Christ was the truth. He was the one who had saved me. When I finally found the courage to speak, I told my family what I had seen. The reaction was worse than I could have ever imagined. They called me mad, possessed. They told me never to speak of it again. But how could I stay silent? I had seen hell. I had felt its fire. I had heard its screams. And I had been saved from it by the very one I had denied. So I made my choice. I left everything behind. My position, my reputation, my family. I was no longer Sheikh Mubarak. I was now a servant of Jesus Christ. And my mission was clear, to tell the world that hell is real, and that only Jesus can save us from it. When I first awoke from death, my body was alive, but my soul was in turmoil. The things I had seen in that place of torment haunted me every time I closed my eyes. The screams, the fire, the smell of burning flesh. It was more real than the world around me. I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, a nightmare brought on by my illness. But the voice, that voice that called me out of darkness, I could not ignore it. I could still hear him. "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." For days I struggled. My entire world had been built on Islam. I had memorized the Quran, spent my life teaching others how to be good Muslims, and defended my faith against Christians whenever the topic arose. And yet, when I stood at the edge of eternity, it was not Allah who saved me. It was Jesus. I tried to push these thoughts away, but they tormented me. I could no longer pray the way I used to. Every time I tried to recite the Shahada, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if I was sealing my own fate. The face of my old friend, the one I had seen burning in the fire, flashed before my eyes, his screams echoing in my mind. "Mubarak, do not come here. Do not follow the path we followed." I needed answers. I decided to go to an old acquaintance of mine, a Christian pastor whom I had debated with years before. I remember how I used to argue against him, confident that Islam held the truth. But now I was the one with questions. I walked into his church hesitantly, my heart pounding in my chest. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened in surprise. He had known me as a devout Muslim, a man who stood firmly against Christianity. And now here I was, standing before him, lost and afraid. "Sheikh Mubarak," he said cautiously, "what brings you here?" I opened my mouth to speak, but I couldn't find the words. How could I explain everything I had seen? How could I admit that I, a respected imam, had been wrong all along? I need to talk, I finally managed to say. We sat down, and for the first time in my life, I listened. I listened, not to debate, not to argue, but to understand. The pastor opened the Bible and began reading to me from the book of Matthew. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Tears filled my eyes. I had never known rest. My entire life had been about striving, performing, trying to earn God's favor. And yet, here was Jesus offering rest, offering salvation not as something I had to work for, but as a gift. But I was taught that Jesus was just a prophet, I said, struggling with the weight of my own words. The pastor looked at me with kindness. He is more than a prophet, Mubarak. He is the Son of God. He is the Lamb who was slain for the sins of the world. And he is the one who pulled you out of hell. Something inside me broke. I fell to my knees weeping. I had spent my whole life searching for God, but it was Jesus who had found me. At that moment, I knew what I had to do. I had to give my life to him. The decision was not easy. When I told my family, they reacted with outrage. My wife screamed, my brothers cursed me, and my father disowned me. "You are no longer my son," he said coldly before turning his back on me. I lost everything that day. I lost my family, my home, my community. I was no longer welcome at the mosque. My name became a curse among those who once respected me. Death threats followed. I had seen hell once before, but now I was living through a different kind of hell, the hell of rejection, of betrayal, of being utterly alone. But I was not alone. Jesus was with me. In the quiet of my pain, I began to read the Bible for myself. And for the first time, the words came alive. I saw the love of God, a love so different from the fear that had once ruled my life. I read about Jesus, the one who healed the sick, who loved the outcasts, who forgave sinners, the one who laid down his life so that we could be saved. And suddenly, everything made sense. The voice I had heard in that place of darkness was his. The light that had saved me was his. The love that now filled my heart was his. I could no longer be silent. I knew that if I had truly been saved, I had a responsibility to tell others, even if it cost me my life. And so I began to preach, not in a church, not in the safety of a congregation, but in the streets, in secret gatherings, in whispered conversations. I began to tell other Muslims about what I had seen, about the reality of hell, about the one who had rescued me. Some listened, others cursed me. One night I received a message, _leave or you will die. I knew the risks. I knew what happened to Muslims who converted to Christianity. And yet, I could not stop. I had seen the truth. I had seen the fire, the agony, the judgment. How could I stay silent when so many were walking toward that same fate? I thought about my old friend, the one I had seen burning in the fire. I thought about his warning, and I knew that if I had truly been rescued, I could not ignore those who were still lost. So I made my choice. I would spend the rest of my life telling others about Jesus, even if it cost me everything. There is a moment in every person's life when they must choose. A moment when the truth stands before them, undeniable, demanding a response. I had seen the truth. I had been pulled from the fire. And now I had a choice. Stay silent and live, or speak and risk everything. I chose to speak. I began to secretly share my testimony with those closest to me. Former students, fellow imams, and even strangers who seemed curious about my sudden disappearance from the mosque. Some listened in stunned silence, unable to believe what they were hearing. Others grew angry, their faces twisting with rage as they called me a traitor, an apostate. But then there were those who whispered, "Tell me more." One of them was a young man named Yusuf. I had taught him since he was a child, guiding him through the Quran, helping him memorize its verses. He had once looked up to me as a teacher, but now he saw me as a warning. "Sheikh," he said one night when we met in secret, "you have lost everything. Your family, your reputation. Was it worth it?" I looked at him and smiled, though my heart ached for all that I had lost. "Yusuf, I lost the world, but I gained eternity. What I saw in that place of fire, no one should ever see. I cannot stay silent." He was quiet for a long time before finally whispering, "Tell me about the voice that called you out." And so I told him about Jesus. It was not long before I became a hunted man. The whispers of my conversion spread quickly, and with them came the threats. I could no longer walk the streets without feeling eyes watching me. Every knock at my door made my heart pound. My own brothers, the ones I had grown up with, vowed to kill me if they ever saw me again. Then, one night, as I was walking home from a small gathering of secret believers, I felt a presence behind me. Before I could turn, a sharp pain exploded in my side. I fell to the ground, gasping, blood pooling beneath me. A voice hissed in my ear, "You should have stayed silent." Footsteps faded into the darkness, leaving me alone in the cold night. I knew I was dying. I closed my eyes, and in that moment, peace washed over me. I did not fear death. I had already seen what lay beyond it. But I also knew that my mission was not yet finished. "Jesus," I whispered, "if it is your will, let me live. But if my time has come, let me go in your arms." I do not remember what happened next. When I woke up, I was in a small house, my wounds bandaged, my body weak but alive. A kind Christian family had found me and taken me in, risking their own lives to save mine. "You cannot stay here," the man told me. "They will come looking for you." I knew he was right. I had become a marked man. Staying in France was no longer an option. And so, with nothing but the clothes on my back and a Bible clutched to my chest, I fled. For months, I wandered from place to place, always looking over my shoulder, always aware that death could find me at any moment. But through it all, God provided. Doors opened in ways I never imagined. I met others who had walked the same path, Muslims who had encountered Jesus and had been forced to flee for their lives. We were outcasts, but we were not alone. It was in one of those hidden gatherings that I heard the call. "You must preach," a man told me. "Your testimony is not just for you. It is for all who are searching for the truth." I hesitated. Preaching would mean greater danger. It would mean exposure. But then I remembered the fire, the screams, the souls trapped in eternal torment. How could I stay silent? And so, I stood before my first congregation. A small group of former Muslims, all gathered in secret, their eyes filled with fear but also hope. I opened the Bible and read, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Tears filled my eyes as I spoke. I was once blind, but now I see. I was once lost, but now I am found. Jesus Christ saved me, and he can save you too. That was the beginning of my ministry. Today, I travel wherever I can, sharing my testimony, preaching the gospel to all who will listen. I know that my days are numbered. I know that those who seek my life have not forgotten me. But I am not afraid. I have already seen hell, and I know I will never see it again. For Jesus Christ is my Savior, and in him I have found life everlasting. If you are listening to my story today, I urge you, do not wait until death to realize the truth. Do not stand at the edge of the fire before you seek the way out. Jesus is calling you now. Will you answer?